Ask Me Anything by Redical. I am a person living off-grid with her family in Vermont. Ask me anything. Edit 3. Okay, I am done. I answered questions for 12 hours on and off, and I need to go to bed. I enjoyed all your questions. Feel free to PM. I'll try to answer as much as I can. Have a great weekend. We are a family of 4. 2 adults, 2 kids, living off-grid on a self-built homestead in Vermont. I am making jam and canning today. I thought I could answer questions for anyone interested. While things simmer on the wood stove, off-grid equals not connected to or served by publicly or privately managed utilities, such as electricity, gas, or water. Disclaimer. We do have internet before anyone points to the obvious. My proof. Imgur.com link. My Instagram where I post pics about off-grid and homesteading. Instagram.com link. Edit. I continue to answer. Just slowly. Sorry. Not trying to avoid any questions. Edit 2. Okay. It's been fun. I will be back in a few hours to answer more questions. But I need to go pick up my kid from school and do my chores for the day. The blueberry jam is delicious for anyone wondering. What's your typical day-to-day life? Like, do you spend a large amount of time getting the basic utilities for the day? Our typical day involves a lot of moving water. We start the day moving wood in for the day, getting water for showers and dishes and consumption on the stove in the morning so we have hot water throughout the day. Feeding the fire is a big task, as wood is our only heat source. It gets cold in the winter in Vermont. In January-February, we have to wake up every hour and a half to feed it. There's a lot of baking and cooking. Things are a bit different on a wood stove. On a weekly basis, we spend time weeding the gardens, weeding the orchard, splitting wood, getting wood from our woodlot. There's always a project that disrupts the flow of daily life. Do you go to the store to get food supplies ever? If so, how often? For what? And what changes in the retail industry could be made to make more people less reliant on them? I go to the store all the time, even though the goal is to one day have at least 90% of our food supply covered by our garden's animals. We are at least 5 years away from that goal. We still buy clothes too at thrift shops, and we buy feed for our chickens. We rely heavily on Amazon for weird stuff we would never be able to find. Special tools to build. It has saved us a ton of trips to stores. I don't know about changes in the retail industry. I think society needs to work on overconsumption though. What do you two do for work? And how do you handle sharing the responsibilities of raising your children? I'm about to have my first child, and I have just got a job as a traveling wind turbine technician. My partner and I are very interested in living off-grid, but a bit apprehensive due to the challenges we may experience being first-time parents. My husband is a sysadmin. I was a librarian, but quit my job after 8 months of living off-grid. I was enjoying being on the land more than my job. As for sharing responsibilities with raising children, well, we have fallen in our gender roles. I do the cooking, tending the gardens, doing laundry, taking care of the children, and he does the building houses, doing the heavy lifting. It happens slowly, and part of me hates the fact that I am happy in this situation. I was raised by a stay-at-home mom, and vowed to never be just a mom. I have kept a few side jobs for my sanity and to bring a bit of money in. I am a freelance reporter for a local newspaper, do communication for the school in town, I'm a recording secretary for school boards. It's been asked like 3 times and never answered. For the greater good we need to know, what kind of jam? Sorry, blueberry jam, and tomato sauce. Smells good but weird in the house. Off-grid just means not connected to public electricity water supply networks, right? Why does everyone think it means homeschooling, not vaccinating, not buying things online? I blame movies and books. I just finished Educated. I think that's what people picture when they think off-grid. Why did you guys decide to keep internet and phones? We are okay with that feature in our life. My husband works in tech, and sometimes has to work from home. We are okay with being connected to society in some forms. Are your kids, will they be homeschooled? We have a great public elementary school right down the road. We also speak French at home, and I don't think I have it in me to homeschool. If he is ever discontent with the school, maybe, but at this point, We are very happy. Our town doesn't have a high school, so we are ascending town, which means that you can send your kid to any middle high school you want, and they will pay the tuition. What's the toughest day you've had off the grid? Ever consider grabbing a hotel room for the night? We went to a hotel for 2 nights once, because it was too hot, and even though we tried to cool the house down, we just couldn't. Don't try the cooler with ice and a fan trick. It doesn't work, folks. I was breastfeeding at the time, and was so dehydrated from the heat I wasn't producing milk. So to the hotel we went for 2 nights. It wasn't really a tough day. The hardest day was probably when I came home from the hospital with a newborn and C-section. Barely able to move. Our living arrangements include a lot of physical labor, carrying wood in, feeding the fire. Heck, just taking a shower means carrying water around. It wasn't hard physically because my husband and son were super helpful and I didn't really have to do anything. But it was hard mentally. I questioned a lot why we were doing this, instead of living in suburbia somewhere closer to family. Okay, why are you off the grid? How do you educate yourself on these matters? We wanted to live in Vermont, and fell in love with a piece of land without a house on it. We were completely new to building. We had only built a chicken coop prior to our house, and had a limited budget. We knew we didn't want to take a mortgage to build, so we went with the most basic cabin we could reasonably build in a short time. We figured we would add features and utilities as money would allow. 5 years in, and we still are fine with not having running water, a constant supply of electricity. We learned everything from YouTube videos, talking to neighbors and friends who have built their own home too. Do you mind sharing details of your background and possibly of your husband's? That is, what type of family raised in, schooling, what you were doing before this, anything you think of that led you to this life choice. Also, thanks for Emma. I find what you are doing cool and fascinating. We think about this a lot. How we got here. We were both raised in big European cities. My happiest memories as a kid were spending summers on my aunt's homestead in Hungary, where my family is from originally. Other than that, we read Goat Song, a beautiful book if you are looking for a good read. It's about a couple moving to Vermont to raise goats. We read it together out loud when my firstborn was a baby. It was a fascinating story, and we were ready for a big change in our lives. I was fresh out of college. My husband was ready to try a new job. It was perfect timing to move, and we had no family where we lived, and very few friends. Why Vermont in particular? As a Vermonter, I'm always curious to see why people move here. We were looking for a place that was not too religious, having moved from the most religious state in the US. That was closer to Europe so family can visit. We are both from Europe originally. Not too hot. We like long winters. That was rural but with a university we could work at. We applied for jobs in several states that met those criteria, and moved to Vermont soon after. We have been here for close to 9 years. How do you bring in money while living off the grid for groceries, other expenses? Husband has a regular, boring desk job. Kidding. He likes what he does. Given that it gets pretty cold in Vermont during the winter, how much wood do you chop for that? Do you buy some, or gather it all yourselves? We gather it on our land. We use about 3 cords I think, but it's pretty hard to say because we usually run out way before winter ends, and we just cut down ash tree. You can burn it green, as we go. This year though, we are starting the season with oak, and plenty of maples. We hope one day to have a few years of surplus. One day. I wanted to chime in. As a dad that raised my family, 3 children, off-grid in the Rockies for 5 years, after living in the concrete jungle of Houston, I don't think people understand the ramifications of making a move like that. This is a very hard life, not just for the adults but for the kids. When children get hurt sick, as they often do, they are exacerbated by the increased distance to facilities, lack of facilities. Among other things, kids still have to go to school, and the associated responsibilities, school functions, unless you're homeschooling, not to mention the isolation. While it can bring a family closer, it can also cause a lot of friction. As my off-grid neighbor mentioned to me, I give you 5 years. When I asked why, he said people tend to fall out of love with the idea of off-grid living between year 4 and 5 inches. I don't regret it, but I definitely wouldn't do it again. We are at year 5 and still loving it. Our son has a chronic condition. We are 30 minutes, 17 once when we drove very fast at 1 am. From a major hospital that has helicopters too. It was part of the equation when moving to this piece of property. I don't think I could live anywhere else off grid but here in Vermont. Mainly because I have found my people. I have found friends who have the same values and have kids. We have limited our social events to once a week because we had too many social interactions. We send our kid to public school. I feel like we have the best of both worlds. But I agree, it is hard sometimes. And it can be extremely hard depending on where you are. We seriously considered Alaska for a while. I am glad we didn't. I envy you. I'd like to get to this place in my own life eventually. How did you begin? I'm sure it's not as simple as buying some land and starting the building process. Are there any laws or legalities that I need to keep in mind? We began right where you are today. It took us several years to transition. Life changes don't happen overnight, although there were a few leap of faith moments. 8 years in, we are at a stage where we feel like our transition is complete. We barely remember what life was before. Laws and legalities vary depending on the place where we are. There is very little that we worry about. We're very free in Vermont to do as we please. That's mostly because what we do happens to not be anything controversial to anyone else. Live and let live. What do you enjoy the most about your lifestyle? Would you want to change anything about your way of living? Thanks for watching this Reddit video. Subscribe for the best Reddit videos straight to your feed every day.